Welcome and welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Alondra and today we are making a classic green bean casserole. So if you are making this recipe today, before you even get started, an important step to remember is to preheat your oven to 375 degrees. If you are planning to make green bean casserole for an upcoming meal or like a holiday dinner, then don't worry about preheating your oven right now. It will need to bake the day that you're serving it, just before you put it out on the table. Looking at all of our ingredients, we have 4 ounces of baby Bella mushrooms, 1 pound of fresh green beans, 4 cloves of garlic. Normally I would use a half of a large onion, but this one's pretty small, so I think I'm gonna end up using the majority of this small onion. I have a half a cup of half and half, a half a cup of chicken broth, 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of butter, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/3 of a cup of panko breadcrumbs, and 4 ounces by weight of French fried onions. So the first things we want to do to get started is prepping all of our fresh ingredients. So the green beans I bought at the store actually are already trimmed. I don't have to trim off any ends there, but I am still going to cut these in half. So with all of our fresh ingredients prepped, the next step that we want to take is blanching our green beans. This whole dish is going to go into the oven, but not nearly long enough to actually cook the green beans. So we're going to speed that process along by first blanching them. So bringing a pot of water to a full boil will submerge all of our green beans, but only leave them in there for about 4 minutes. We don't want them to be mushy because they will be going in the oven, but we'll start the cooking process here. And then while those are boiling, let's get an ice bath ready. So as soon as that 4 minutes is up, we'll transfer our green beans over into the ice bath, and that will halt the cooking process at that point in time so they don't end up overdone. So then coming out of the ice bath, we're just gonna strain them so they can dry off a little bit while we get the gravy ready. So to assemble our gravy, we're gonna start in a medium-sized saucepan and first get our butter melted. And then to our melted butter, we're gonna add that onion and saute that for about 4 to 5 minutes, just until it starts to soften and get a little translucent. After that 4 to 5 minutes, let's add in our minced garlic, and we're just gonna stir that around for about 1 minute or until it's really fragrant. So to our onions and garlic, we're gonna go ahead and add in our 4 ounces of prepped mushrooms, along with a half a teaspoon of salt and about a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. So we're gonna stir this for a few minutes. Mushrooms are a lot like sponges. They carry a lot of water, so we want most of that water to be released and start to boil off. So after a few minutes with our mushrooms, we're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. If you recall, we had 2 tablespoons of butter at the beginning of this, and now by adding this 2 tablespoons of flour in with our veggies, we're going to essentially be creating a roux with all of those veggies that are in there. So we wanna stir this flour in and allow it to cook for a few minutes. This will act as our thickener for when we add in our chicken broth and our half and half. All right, so first we'll come in with a half a cup or 4 ounces of chicken broth. You can see that already is thickening up nicely. And we'll stir that in until we have no clumps. After our chicken broth is stirred, let's add in 1/2 cup of half and half. Just starting to thicken up, so we will go ahead and turn off our heat. And there's still retained heat inside of our pot, so we're just going to keep whisking to prevent any clumps from forming on the bottom. Alright, so last step, we're going to reintroduce these blanched green beans. I like to make this in my 8x8 casserole dish, so it spreads out pretty thin across the bottom, but honestly my favorite part about a green bean casserole is the crunchy fried onions and panko breadcrumbing like top. So by spreading it out in a thinner layer, I get a better topping to casserole ratio. Alright, so this is the point where if you were going to be making this in advance, you could just cover this in saran wrap and pop it in the fridge for 1 to 2 days. But we are going to be eating this tonight, so the next step for us is going to be first sprinkling with 1/3 cup of panko breadcrumbs. Then 4 ounces of the French fried onions. So now that our green bean casserole is ready to bake, let's pop this into our 375-degree preheated oven for about 20 minutes. Everything in here is fully cooked, so really what we're doing is just getting everything hot and bubbly and allowing those toppings to get crispy and a little browned while they're in the oven. Yum. So it's perfect. Everything in here was cooked before it went into the oven, but what we were looking for was this bubbling. All right, so now that our green bean casserole is done baking, we can let this sit for maybe about 10 minutes. It's not gonna lose too much heat, but that gravy is so warm right now that by letting it rest for 10 minutes while we assemble the rest of our dinner, it will give it a chance to thicken up. So when we scoop it, we get that good gravy in there with our green beans and our topping. My name is Alondra, and I want to thank you for joining me today while we made one of my favorite holiday dinner side dishes, a green bean casserole. Thank you for spending time with me, and I will see you in the next one.